I'm standing on Government Street at the intersection of Lawrence. Behind me is a corner of the campus of the Mobile Area Chamber of Commerce. That corner in 1855 held a three-story brick mansion built by Daniel Wheeler, a commission merchant. In 1890, his heirs sold it to Colonel Edward Lafayette Russell. Colonel Russell was a household name in that period. He ran the Mobile and Ohio Railroad, the equivalent of running an airline today. He had private car service back and forth to his office in Washington, and was even offered the position of Emperor of Carnival before King Felix got that honor a few years later. He was a hero both in 1897 and in 1906 for two different reasons. In 1897, when the quarantine was lifted from one of the worst yellow fever epidemics we ever had, Colonel Russell gave free passage to all the victims that were stranded out of town to get home. In 1906, following a terrific hurricane, he sent help down to the south part of Mobile County where there's so many casualties to help bring people back into town also free of charge. In 1890, the family traveled to Washington as special guests for the inauguration of Benjamin Harrison. That was one of the coldest inaugurations ever. His only son contracted pneumonia and died a few weeks later. In 1903, his wife Emma died in Washington as well, contracting an illness and dying at the Willard Hotel. And strangely, in 1911, Colonel Russell himself got sick while he was in Washington and died there. There was a huge state funeral here in Mobile, and an estimated 3,000 people flocked to Magnolia Cemetery to see his coffin descend into the ground. All of the property that he had amassed went to his only surviving child, Eline. Eline never married and thought she was quite an investor. In the 1920s, the stock market was soaring. She took her inheritance and squandered it on stocks, which crashed in 1929, and she was basically penniless. She lived on in the house a couple more years and was a regular fixture in downtown Mobile, where she would hit the coffee spots early in the morning to try to get businessmen to buy what jewelry she had left. She finally lost the house and ended up moving into what was a shanty out on Stanton Road. Whereas her father had almost 3,000 mourners at his funeral at Magnolia Cemetery, only 3 people showed up for Eline's. The house that she had lived and grown up in was demolished for a drugstore after World War II. That building and everything else in the block was raised in 1967 by Urban Renewal. The plan was that a developer out of Birmingham would build a motel on this site. Neither the developer nor the motel ever materialized. The lot stayed vacant for years until the Mobile Area Chamber of Commerce built their headquarters here in the early 1980s.